say shalom. Hallelujah, go Israel. Amen. Oh, say shalom, shalom in Roma. Hallelujah, say shalom. Hallelujah. We are called Israel. We in Ruach. We are called Israel.
Our service continues on page 377, prayer for Israel.
Shamayim, Tor Yisrael, Bedoalo, Maharegen, not Yisrael, Reshit Smihan, Behulateh.
Together, O Heavenly One, Protector and Redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love. Spread over it and your peace. Send the light and truth to all believing powers, that and your counsels. Establish peace in the land, and close the door for all who dwell there. Amen. Fountainhead of all life, you who rained your blessings on our mothers Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah, and on our fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, causing their seed to sprout and grow and thrive not only in a land flowing, but in the desert places too, may you likewise shower us, their offspring, and those near to us, with a recovery of wholeness, a restoration of the contents in their vessel. May you pour your healing into the barren furrows of those parched by illness and pain, dried out by distancing and despair. Just as you have given us your Torah, the waters of life, as a source of help for all time, so may you send the waters of healing to all who thirst for peace, for wholeness, for shleimut. Mishaberach can be found on page 371.
Source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find a
Let me begin by crediting some of the ideas behind what I'm about to tell you to my teacher, Rabbi Dr. Lawrence Hoffman of the Hebrew Union College in New York City. Shh, it's a secret. That seems to be what Rabbi Abraham ibn Ezra was saying when he commented on a verse in this week's parashah, this week's Torah portion. The portion is called Lech Lecha, and it opens with God's telling Abraham to go forth from his land, his birthplace, and the family he grew up with to a place that God would show him. So Abraham takes the family of his own generation and goes to this place which will eventually be called the land of Israel. He travels the length and breadth of the territory, and then the Torah adds a parenthetical phrase, V'hakanani az ba'aretz, and the Canaanite was then in the land. Doesn't sound so complicated. The phrase the Canaanite is fine. It's a typical biblical way of saying the Canaanite people. The issue is with one tiny little Hebrew word, az, which means then, at that time. The Canaanite was then in the land. Az is a problem. It's a problem because the Jewish understanding of what happened at Mount Sinai is that God dictated the entire Torah there to Moses. Moses may just have had the Ten Commandments on the 2 stone tablets, but he must have been carrying a backpack where he kept the rest of the text of the 5 books. And that's where Az, then, gets difficult. By the time that God is giving Moses the Torah, and indeed throughout all of Moses' life, which is, and his life, the end of his life is when the Torah ends, throughout all of that time, the Canaanites were in the land. So why would Moses say that they were in the land then, that is, back when Abraham was there, as though somehow they weren't in the land anymore? The rabbis came up with several explanations. The Canaanites were just starting to conquer the land when Abraham entered. The text here was written to have been read from the perspective of the generations after Moses. And there are others which were even more fanciful. Sigmund Freud once related a story about a person who was accused by her neighbor of having returned the kettle she had borrowed in a damaged condition. The neighbor made 3 arguments. I didn't borrow the kettle, I returned it undamaged, and it was damaged when I borrowed it. The various rabbinic efforts to work around the problem of when the Canaanites were in the land sounds a little bit like that. Then we come to Abraham ibn Ezra. Living about 900 years ago in Spain, Ibn Ezra, in addition to being a biblical commentator, was a philosopher, a grammarian, a poet, and in general what could be called a pretty smart dude. He gave his own version of the story of the kettle answer, and then he wrote, should this interpretation be incorrect? That's a way of saying, if you realize how silly this all sounds, then there is a sod, a secret meaning to the texts. And then he added, let the one who understands it remain silent. The debate about why the word then appears in a biblical verse now starts to carry an element of intrigue. What is the secret meaning? And why should the one who understands it keep silent? It's almost as if we've wandered into a Dan Brown novel. The secret meaning would appear to be an acknowledgement that if the Torah says that the Canaanites were in the land back then, that is to say, not now, it means the Torah was written after the Canaanites were no longer in the land, that is, after the Israelites had conquered it. And that, of course, was long after Moses' death. So if that's all the case, then Moses could not have written the Torah at God's direction. And what that means in turn is that the Torah was in fact not written by God, but by human beings. As to why the one who understands this should remain silent, the most common explanation is that there were dangers to saying things like this out loud at the time. A classic example does come from sort of the world of Dan Brown, that is, the world of the Vatican. For years leading up to and during the Renaissance, astronomers were running into trouble doing calculations that relied on the standard notion that the sun revolved around the Earth. Yet everyone continued to accept that notion until Nicholas Copernicus came up with a new idea. The Earth and all the other planets revolved around the sun. One of the great proponents of Copernicus's ideas, and one who contributed many of his own insights, was Galileo Galilei. Galileo lived in Pisa, Italy, and eventually came into conflict with the Catholic Church there. He was tried for heresy for his scientific beliefs, and eventually he was forced to recant. His lesson shows that people who want to live a secure life maybe don't want to share everything that they've come to learn. However, Dr. Hoffman questions the standard explanation that Ibn Ezra was warning his clued-in readers not to risk their own version of a papal trial. Dr. Hoffman suggests that Ibn Ezra questions Moses' authorship of the Torah elsewhere in his commentary, and rather more explicitly, so he can't really be unwilling to do it publicly here. So this leads to another way of looking at the text, or at the phrase, rather, there is a sod to the text. Hoffman says that sod has another meaning besides secret. It can mean profound. Seeing the Torah as a work of human beings, in other words, is a profound insight. So says Ibn Ezra. There's a story which may or may not be true about Galileo's release from prison after he recanted his statements that the earth orbited the sun. I'm sorry, the sun orbited the earth. No, the earth orbited the sun. Got it right there. The moment he was set at liberty, he looked up to the sky and down to the ground, and stamping with his foot in a contemplative mood, said, Eppur si muove, that is, still it moves, meaning the earth. He wasn't just expressing his insistence on scientific truth. Rather, he was insisting that such truth can be profound. It can be deep and resonant with our most basic understandings. That is the sort of truth that Ibn Ezra was talking about. If you can get it, he said, a belief that humans wrote the Torah is profound. It doesn't mean that the Torah is any less sacred. As Dr. Hoffman writes, the exact opposite is the case. The miracle of Torah is not that God spoke it into being once and for all time at Sinai. It is that the Jewish people, in covenant with God, discern divine purpose uninterruptedly, generation after generation. The miracle is that the discernment of generations were somehow edited into what we call the Torah, and that generations thereafter have been reading and interpreting that very same Torah ever since. The rabbis interpreted the Torah in each generation, and they have passed that legacy on to us. Each generation has its own way of looking at everything. As an article in today's Boston Globe pointed out, there is an argument about whether the greatest catch in Red Sox history was by Dwight Evans in the 6th game of the 1975 World Series, by Tom Bernansky to clinch the Eastern Division in 1990, or by Andrew Benintendi to win a major playoff game on Wednesday night. Well, actually Thursday morning for those who stayed up to see it. The Torah is more important than the Red Sox, although this might not be the week to push me on that. But the process is similar. Each generation finds its greatness in its own way, in what they are viewing, in our case, in the text. And that's the secret that Ibn Ezra saw, the profound truth he realized. The Canaanites may be gone now, but we are still in the land of Torah, still struggling with it and uplifted by our struggles. That is our inheritance. That is our legacy. Ken Yehi Ratzon, be this God's will. We're going to continue in our prayer books on page 645, L'chilach, based upon this week's Torah portion. We continue on the bottom of page 586 with Aleinu. I'd like to ask Tara Martin, please, to come and open the ark for us. Please rise.
Seas
The meditation for the Kaddish, before the Kaddish rather, is not found in your prayer books. Each of us has a name given by God and given by our parents. Each of us has a name given by our stature and our smile and given by what we wear. Each of us has a name given by the mountains and given by our walls. Each of us has a name given by the stars and given by our neighbors. Each of us has a name given by our sins and given by our longing. Each of us has a name given by our enemies and given by our love. Each of us has a name given by our celebrations and given by our work. Each of us has a name given by the seasons and given by our blindness. Each of us has a name given by the sea and given by our death. We recall this week first the names of those who died within the past period of time and whose memories we recall. During the period of Shana, the first year of mourning for parents, we recall the names of Emmanuel Block, father of Abby Block, Loretta Sims, mother of Tony Sims, James Penwell, father of Lynn Rubenstein, and Robert Campbell, father of Mike Campbell. We recall as well this week the yard sites, the anniversaries of the passing of Jason Brooks, father of Jonathan Brooks, Kenny Erickson, cousin of Jeffrey Winokur, Fanny Goldman, grandmother of Ronald Vanuker, Alvin Halpern, father of Susan Hirschfield, Harriet Richard, aunt of Melissa Folsom, Sally Roberts, aunt of David Hirschfield, Miriam Schwartz, grandmother of Alyssa Zweig, Florence Schanbaum, mother of Susan Rosen, Victor Snyder, uncle of Sue Cass, Guy Thurber, father of Colleen Keel, Barbara Wakefield, stepmother of Lori Beth Town. Are there others? The memories of all of them are with us. Our griefs and our sympathies are mingled as we now rise as a community to praise God and pray for the coming of God's rule. Mourner's Kaddish can be found on page 598. Yitgadal, Yitgadash, Shemei Rabbah, Bi'alma, Divrach, Hirutei, Bi'amlik, Malchutei, B'chaye Echon, U'yom Echon, U'chaye Dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala U'izman Kari V'imru, Amen. Yehe Shemei Rabbah Mevarach, Le'elam L'olmei Almaya, Yitbarach, Yishtabach, Yitba'ar, Yitromam, Yitnaseh, Yithadar, Yithaleh, Yithalal, Shemei Kudusha, Furechu, Le'ela, Min Kol Birchata, V'shirata, Tushbachata, V'nechamata, Da'amiran, V'alma, V'imru, Amen. Otei Sholama, Rabba, Min Shemaya, V'chaim Aleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru, Amen. Oseh Shalom, V'imromav, U'ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru, Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved, and together let us say, Amen. Please be seated.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I'm Rosie Buja, and on behalf of the board, I would like to thank Lee and Dave for leading us in song, and for Ben to helping us lead us in prayer. Mazel Tov, Ben, to you and your family on this wonderful life cycle event. This week's calendar includes some of the following. Saturday, October 20th, tomorrow, Torah study at 8:30 at the temple, followed by our Shabbat morning service, during which Ben Martin will become a bar mitzvah. The service starts at 10, and all are welcome to join us at the First Universalist Society of Franklin. The Froggy Mega Maze will be at 5. On Sunday, October 21st, religious school meets at 9:30. Tuesday, October 23rd, the Havarine kickoff begins at 6:45. on, at Temple Beth Torah. Wednesday, October 24th, the Froggy WRJ convention begins. And on that same day, Wednesday, October 24th, Rabbi Sally Presand, the first woman ordained rabbi in America, will share her reflections on my life as a rabbi. She will be speaking at the Franklin Federated Church. Do come. It should be a really interesting time. On Saturday, October 27th, in addition to Torah study at 8:30, there will be the 7th grade class service here at the temple at 10 a.m. Further out, don't forget our fundraiser at the Alumni Restaurant on November 4th, beginning at 4 p.m. For those of you who, like me, are getting to the point where the early bird special is really good. And if you haven't heard, we will have our annual Tree of Life Awards Gala celebration on Saturday, November 18th, at the 3 Restaurant in Franklin. This year, we will honor Stacy Bushy, whose hard work and dedication keeps this temple strong and whose warm, welcoming presence makes the temple a home for us all. We will also honor Reverend Carol Rosine, Minister Emerita, First Universalist Society in Franklin, who has been a supportive friend of our temple for many years, helping to establish our temple as a vital part of the Franklin interfaith community. For more details about these and other events, please check our temple webpage. Shabbat Shalom.
And I'd like to add one other announcement, which Rosie wasn't aware of, which is that next Friday, we will have a special Shabbat. Next Friday is, of course, Red Sox Shabbat. So you're encouraged to come, wear Red Sox gear, and support our team as it moves onward to another World Championship. Our closing song,
Havana Shira is what you wrote down.
See if you were changing anything, is Havana Shira on page 643.
Is that too high? That's probably too high for you.
May God's face be lifted up to you and grant you every blessing
Thank you so much. That's good. All right, switch on this side.
I do have a Red Sox hat. I do have a Red Sox hat. We can have a national league. It's really hard to know.
Parents weekend, environmental